The skies above the US-Mexico border have gone silent. Where once cartels operated with impunity, now they scan the heavens, waiting for death to rain down.
The U.S. military is keeping a close eye on the Mexican border. Over the course of 10 days, spy planes flew at least 18 missions over the southwestern U.S. and the international airspace around the Baja Peninsula.
High above Sinaloa territory, America's most sophisticated surveillance aircraft slice through Mexican airspace. Predator drones follow, their wings loaded with Hellfire missiles. For decades, these weapons hunted terrorists. Now, they're turning their sights on a new enemy, one responsible for more American deaths than ISIS and Al-Qaeda combined. For the first time in history, the CIA is actively reviewing its authority to use lethal force against Mexican cartels, not discussing if, but how and when. For Sinaloa's leadership, already fractured after Mayo's arrest, a terrifying new reality is setting in. Nowhere is safe, not their compounds, not their mountain hideouts, not even their government connections. Welcome to the new cartel war, one where America has decided to stop playing by the old rules. When President Trump designated Mexican cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, FTOs, this year, many dismissed it as political theater. But inside Mexico's criminal underworld, the announcement sent shockwaves.
2 weeks ago, I officially designated this gang, along with MS-13 and the bloodthirsty Mexican drug cartels, as foreign terrorist organizations. They are now officially in the same category as ISIS, and that's not good for them.
This wasn't just bureaucratic relabeling, it was the legal foundation for what's coming next. By designating cartels as terrorists, the administration unlocked the full spectrum of America's counterterrorism arsenal: drone strikes, special operations raids, and targeted assassinations. Tools kept only for the world's most dangerous terrorist groups. As one CNN source revealed, the move was designed to build a predicate for lethal action, a calculated legal framework for what's to come. The surveillance campaign alone is an unprecedented escalation. Where the previous administration conducted roughly one surveillance flight per month, Trump's military has launched at least 18 in a single 10-day period. U-2 spy planes, RC-135 rivet joints, and P-8 Poseidons, the most advanced intelligence aircraft in America's arsenal, now regularly patrol the border. But something doesn't add up. Mexico's officials claim to know of only 2 such flights. Either Mexico is deliberately downplaying American operations to save face, or the United States is deliberately keeping them in the dark. Neither scenario bodes well for diplomacy. When pressed about whether these flights were targeting drug traffickers, Mexico's defense minister Ricardo Trevilla's response was, "We can't rule it out because we don't know what they did." Think about the implications. A defense minister admitting that a foreign power might be conducting surveillance targeting his country's territory, and they simply don't know. It's a stunning admission of how dramatically the power dynamics have shifted. Meanwhile, on the ground, the military buildup continues. For the first time in over a decade, armored Stryker combat vehicles have been deployed to the border, with more expected in the coming weeks.
As of this week, 8-wheeled armored fighting vehicles known as Strykers have been deployed to the border for the first time in more than a decade as part of the Pentagon's support of Customs and Border Protection.
According to Border Patrol, 2 are now stationed in the El Paso sector, and more Strykers expected to be deployed to other areas along the border in the next few weeks. These aren't just transportation vehicles. Strykers can be armed with the M250 machine gun, MK-19 grenade launcher, and .50 caliber M2 machine guns. Weaponry designed to eliminate enemy combatants, not detain migrants.
That's really what we're doing with the Stryker out here. It provides us great mobility to get soldiers where they need to be to observe on the border.
This Border Patrol official described their psychological impact.
A good portion of what we've observed is what we call turnbacks. Migrants who are detected while crossing the border, they either cease activity or they go back across before there's any interaction.
But the message is not to 1 or 2 migrants struggling to come north. The message is for cartels, and it's clear. It's a reminder of precisely who has the most powerful military in the world. In a seismic shift in policy, the CIA is now actively reviewing its authority to use lethal force against Mexican cartels. This isn't speculation. According to a CNN exclusive report from earlier this month, the agency is calculating exactly what actions it can legally take against cartel targets. To understand how extraordinary this is, you need to realize what it means. The CIA, America's covert intelligence arm, responsible for eliminating Osama bin Laden and countless other high-value targets, is preparing to potentially bring that same lethal capability to bear against Mexican cartels. The review is examining everything from the CIA's legal authority to conduct drone strikes on Mexican soil to the liability issues if American citizens are accidentally killed in such operations. It's the kind of comprehensive legal and operational groundwork the agency conducts before major covert action programs. As one former CIA official told CNN, if any administration is pushing us to do something that has potential significant adverse ramifications for the agency, the CIA is going to want to double and triple check. Is it legal? And do we have extraordinarily clear policy direction to do what we're going to do? For the Sinaloa Cartel, already reeling from the arrests of its founding leaders, El Chapo Guzman and El Mayo Zambada, this represents an existential threat unlike any they've faced before, where once they could bribe officials or intimidate law enforcement, they now face an adversary immune to both tactics and armed with predator drones. Trump's people say sure, they know cartels will strike back, but they can strike harder.
There will be violence, and it's something we're prepared to handle, but a warning to the cartels: if they harm a border police, one of our soldiers, President Trump will not hesitate to take extreme action. I think President Trump will wipe them off the face of the earth, just like he did ISIS and the Caliphate.
The surveillance operations already underway reveal the scale of American intelligence gathering. The U-2 spy plane can photograph targets from 70,000 feet with resolution detailed enough to identify individuals. The RC-135 rivet joint can intercept electronic communications across vast distances. The P-8 Poseidon can track movements with sophisticated radar systems. Together, they create a surveillance picture that serves only one purpose: targeting. According to security experts, what we're seeing are classic shaping operations, the critical intelligence gathering phase before direct action. Military analysts recognize this pattern from previous counterterrorism campaigns. First comes surveillance to map networks and identify high-value targets. Then comes the strike phase. According to a former Tier 1 Special Operations veteran, you don't move this much equipment into a region unless you plan on using it. Inside Sinaloa territory, panic has set in. The once mighty cartel that controlled vast swathes of Mexico's drug trade is now scrambling to adapt to a threat they never anticipated.
Now that this cartel operatives in Mexico say they're worried about being arrested or even killed as Trump cracks down on our southern border.
The psychological impact of Trump's escalation is already visible. One Sinaloa leader spoke to the New York Times.
You can't be calm, you can't even sleep, because you don't know when they'll catch you. The most important thing now is to survive.
Yeah, it's unclear how he ended up talking to the New York Times in the first place, but this analyst pointed this out.
Interestingly enough, so the cartel leaders were able to talk to the New York Times. They were able to find them. We should be able to find those leaders, and that is what is terrifying them.
Now, every Sicario and every kingpin knows they're not out of the spotlight anymore. According to multiple reports, cartel leaders are relocating families to more remote locations. Drug labs are shutting down or moving. Some operatives are selling off assets. Others are investing in counter-surveillance technology.
The Sinaloa Cartel is feeling the heat. Leaders are in hiding, drug labs are shutting down, and once untouchable operatives are scrambling for cover.
In Culiacan, the capital of Sinaloa State and the cartel's traditional stronghold, the atmosphere has transformed. Businesses close early. Parents track their children's movements in real time. Funerals are held during daylight hours for safety. Schools sit half empty as families flee the violence. A school principal described to Al Jazeera how he begins each morning by checking his phone for signs of gunfire before deciding if classes can proceed. This is the grim reality for civilians caught in the crossfire of cartel violence, and now, potentially, American military action. The fracturing of the Sinaloa Cartel has only accelerated their vulnerability. Since the arrests of El Chapo and El Mayo Zambada, the organization has split into warring factions, primarily Los Chapitos and Los Mayos. This internal conflict has turned parts of Sinaloa State into open war zones. Now, with American drones potentially entering the equation, cartel operators face an impossible calculation: continue fighting each other or unite against an external threat. Either way, their traditional tactics, intimidation, corruption, and violence offer no protection against Hellfire missiles fired from 25,000 feet. Security expert Miguel Calderon told Al Jazeera that fear and frustration could shift public perception of the cartels. People no longer see them as protectors. Think about it. Cartels held entire towns in their grip for decades. How? They built loyalty by being the only government that showed up. When cops wouldn't come, cartels would handle neighborhood problems. When jobs disappeared, they offered cash. When hospitals lacked medicine, they'd bring some. It was a twisted relationship, but it worked. The locals tolerated the devils they knew because at least these devils sometimes paid the bills. Now, that's all falling apart. The violence has gotten too extreme. Innocent people are dying, kids can't go to school. And with American drones potentially about to rain hell from above, communities are asking, what protection are the cartels giving us now? It's a massive shift. The cartel's greatest shield was always the people they lived among. Without that shield, they're exposed, vulnerable, and completely screwed if the US decides to pull the trigger. President Claudia Sheinbaum faces an impossible dilemma. Allow American military operations on Mexican soil, a profound violation of sovereignty, or face punishing economic consequences from the Trump administration. The pressure campaign has been relentless. Trump threatened 25% tariffs unless Mexico acted decisively against the cartels. The economic impact would be catastrophic for a country where nearly 80% of exports go to the United States. Faced with this ultimatum, Sheinbaum has dramatically escalated anti-cartel operations. Nearly 900 arrests have been made in Sinaloa since October. Mexico extradited dozens of cartel figures to the US, including 29 in a single day in February. Among them, Rafael Caro Quintero, one of the FBI's most wanted fugitives.
We're moving away from law enforcement to the full brunt of the US military. That's a whole different fucking ballgame.
The Mexican military has seized over a ton of fentanyl in December alone, far exceeding the previous year's total, and dismantled 113 synthetic drug labs in February. More than 400 cartel surveillance cameras have been taken down. That's an unprecedented action against cartels. Trump has made his intentions clear.
President Trump, if the cartels are now going to be seen as foreign terror organizations, would you think about ordering U.S. Special Forces into Mexico to take them out?
Could happen. Stranger things have happened.
And when asked about Mexican sovereignty concerns,
Mexico probably doesn't want that, but we have to do what's right.
The implications are huge. If the US conducts military strikes on Mexican soil, it would be the first direct American military action against Mexico since General Pershing's 1916 expedition to capture Pancho Villa. Only this time, the firepower available is 1,000 times more devastating. This raises the crucial question: is Mexico complicit in these potential operations? The discrepancy between American reports of 18 surveillance flights and Mexico's acknowledgement of only 2 suggests either deliberate deception or strategic ignorance. One possibility is that Mexico is cooperating far more with American operations than they're willing to publicly admit. A tacit agreement: you can hunt on our soil, but we'll deny it's happening. As one security analyst put it, Trump established a deadline, and we are seeing results that should have taken years. The Sinaloa Cartel is right to panic, but people are right to panic too. Experts everywhere now warn this is what's expected.
They're gonna come here, right? And they're gonna come here and they're gonna bring the fight. You know, you're gonna see congressmen getting assaulted. You're gonna see their kids getting kidnapped.
In other words, if Trump says cartels are no longer Mexico's problem, violence won't be confined to Mexico anymore. Today's cartels are nothing short of military operations, with armies bigger than some actual countries. We're talking 100,000 plus members for Sinaloa alone.
There is an estimation of the Sinaloa Cartel that there's like 100,000 members. That's a fucking army.
They've got drones, armored vehicles, encrypted comms, and battle tactics that would make special forces take notice. While politicians spent decades treating this like a drug problem, these organizations transformed into something much scarier. Many states with better weapons than the cops trying to stop them. That's why Trump's approach is blowing minds. He's the first president to look at the situation and call it what it actually is: a war. The Sinaloa Cartel, in particular, has evolved into a multinational criminal enterprise with operations spanning continents. They've established manufacturing partnerships with Chinese networks for fentanyl production, sophisticated distribution channels throughout American cities, and financial pipelines through European and Asian banking systems. What began as regional drug trafficking has evolved into a global criminal empire threatening stability far beyond Mexico's borders. Their tactics have evolved as well. Today's cartels have weaponized fear itself. They deliberately broadcast atrocities online, turning public spaces into execution sites. Their strategy extends beyond eliminating rivals. They aim to dominate through terror.
I found myself by 2012 in a morgue in Monterrey with 49 bodies who had all been decapitated, all had their hands and feet cut off.
The psychological warfare is brutally effective. If you're a reporter in Mexico, you know publishing the wrong story could mean finding your loved ones dismembered. If you're a police officer, you face an impossible choice: accept bribes or identify your family at the morgue. As new factions splinter from established cartels, they establish dominance through increasingly shocking displays of violence. Their battlegrounds have expanded beyond traditional drug territories. They now fight for control of legitimate industries too.
They'd also take over the local drug selling, shaking down, kidnapping, stealing cars, selling pirated goods. They started taking over corrupt trade unions.
This explains why traditional law enforcement approaches have failed. The cartels have diversified far beyond drugs. They've infiltrated legitimate businesses, established political connections, and created parallel governance structures in territories they control. Perhaps most concerning for American security planners is the cartel's evolution toward direct attacks on law enforcement. Border Patrol agents now face the prospect of explosive-laden drones targeting them on American soil.
Tom, let's get right at this. There are reports that the cartels plan to attack Border Patrol agents with suicide drones.
When a foreign criminal organization attempts to assassinate American law enforcement officials on U.S. soil, it crosses a critical threshold. This isn't just drug trafficking, it's an act of war, and Trump's response has been unambiguous. All options are on the table. So what happens next? With CIA drones buzzing overhead and military firepower stacking up at the border, we're looking at 3 possible futures, and none of them end with business as usual. This is the best-case scenario, where President Sheinbaum's massive crackdown actually works. And make no mistake, Mexico is going hard right now. Nearly 900 cartel arrests in Sinaloa since October, over a ton of fentanyl seized in December alone. A record-breaking number of drug labs destroyed in February. They're extraditing cartel bosses to the U.S. in bulk, 29 in a single day in February, including legendary fugitive Rafael Caro Quintero. For context, that's like capturing one of the original godfathers of the entire Mexican drug trade. Why all this sudden action? Simple. Mexico desperately wants to keep American missiles off their soil. They're scrambling to show Trump, look, we're handling it. No need for your military. But here's the brutal question. Will Trump accept these results, or has he already decided to pull the trigger? His base is hungry for action, and he straight up told Congress,
"The cartels are waging war on America, and it's time for America to wage war on the cartels," which we are doing.
With over 70,000 Americans dying from fentanyl each year, the political math is simple. Trump promised to stop the deaths. If they continue, Scenario 1 dies with them. This is what keeps cartel bosses awake at night. American precision strikes targeting specific high-value leaders. Think Osama bin Laden-style operations. One day, a cartel commander is chilling in his compound. The next, a Hellfire missile reduces it to smoking rubble. According to intelligence insiders, this is exactly what the CIA is wargaming right now. The review does not indicate President Donald Trump has ordered the CIA to take direct action against the cartels, but it is designed to help the agency understand what kinds of activities it could legally undertake and what the potential risks would be across the suite of options. The playbook would be familiar to anyone who's followed America's war on terror. They'd start with isolated targets in remote areas, mountain compounds, rural convoys, secluded airstrips. The prime targets would be the fentanyl kingpins, the specific individuals linked to American overdose deaths, allowing the White House to frame these hits as pure self-defense. Legal experts point out that the terrorist designation for cartels wasn't just symbolic. It unlocked specific authorities under U.S. law that permit military action against designated terrorist groups. By labeling cartels as terrorists, Trump's team created the legal foundation for these strikes months ago. Mexican officials would publicly condemn the attacks, but might secretly provide intelligence on targets they want eliminated. It's the ultimate off-the-record partnership. Mexico gets deniability, America gets results. This is the nightmare scenario that security experts fear most, a sustained campaign that spirals into open conflict. It starts with targeted strikes, but cartels don't just take the hit, they retaliate. Imagine cartel drones dropping explosives on Border Patrol stations, Imagine sleeper cells in Phoenix, Dallas, and Chicago activating to attack federal buildings. Imagine what happens when American soldiers start coming home in body bags and the pressure mounts for an even more aggressive response. Before long, we're looking at something eerily similar to the early days of Afghanistan. Special forces teams hunting cartel leaders while regular troops secure territory. Except this time, it's happening right next door. The historical precedent is damning. Every time we've taken out cartel leadership, something worse emerges from the chaos. After the DEA dismantled the Guadalajara cartel in the 1980s, the power vacuum birthed the Sinaloa, Juarez, and Tijuana cartels, organizations that would go on to murder tens of thousands. When the Mexican military captured or killed Los Zetas leaders, their territory fragmented into dozens of competing factions, each trying to out-brutalize the other to establish dominance. The violence skyrocketed. As one veteran border security expert with over 2 decades of experience put it,
because a lot of people that don't know what's going on think that we're just going to go in and just bang hammers and then the cartel will disappear. But having done this job for 20 plus years, I know that's not the case at all.
Think about what happens when you kick a hornet's nest. The hornets don't surrender. They attack from every direction. Cartels have survived and thrived specifically because they've mastered asymmetric warfare against more powerful enemies. The Culiacan incident of 2019 proves this exact point. When Mexican authorities arrested El Chapo's son, Ovidio Guzman, the Sinaloa Cartel didn't beg for mercy. They mobilized hundreds of heavily armed fighters who overwhelmed military positions, threatened to massacre civilian families, and paralyzed the entire city until the government folded and released him. That's their standard response to threats. Now imagine their reaction to American missiles killing their leadership. Why would they wait for the next strike? The strategic move would be to demonstrate their reach immediately, to make Americans feel the cost of intervention so acutely that public opinion turns against further action. And here's the terrifying reality. Cartels already have extensive networks inside the United States. They operate in over 100 American cities. Their money flows through legitimate businesses. Their people blend into communities. If they decide to activate these networks for something beyond drug distribution, the consequences could be devastating. The game has changed. Right now, cartel bosses are sleeping in different locations every night, abandoning their luxurious compounds and looking nervously at the sky. That's not nothing. For the first time, these untouchable killers, men who've judges, tortured rivals, and poisoned American kids with fentanyl, are the ones feeling hunted. Their drug labs are shutting down. Their lieutenants are selling assets. Their networks are scrambling. Is this panic a sign that Trump's strategy might actually work? Maybe. But here's the brutal reality. Cornered animals fight harder. History tells us cartels don't surrender. They evolve. When El Chapo went down, his son stepped up and the bloodshed intensified. When authorities pressured one trafficking route, cartels pioneered deadlier ones. We're standing at a crossroads. If surgical strikes decapitate cartel leadership without civilian casualties, we might see these criminal empires crumble. But if cartels activate their networks inside American cities for revenge attacks, if Mexican sovereignty is violated, if civilians get caught in the crossfire, we could be trading one crisis for something far worse. Either way, the rules of this deadly game have fundamentally changed. The hunter has become the hunted, and for ordinary people caught in the middle, both Americans dying from fentanyl and Mexicans living under cartel terror, the hope is that something better emerges from whatever comes next. Hey, thanks for watching. Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more in-depth coverage of cartel activities and the evolving security situation on the border. And watch that next video on screen. The hard truth must be shared. Until next time, stay safe.